our entire presentation summed up, wasn't it? So thank you.
Thanks for that.
Yep, so we're Mark and Keith, and we have 20 odd years experience in branding. And
hopefully we can share some of our kind of insights and experiences and help people. Branding tends to be a bit of a scary word, I think, sort of like, because people have their own associations with what branding is, and that sort of scares us actually as a slide, because
these are some of our past clients, and if we were working for these clients, we'd have come on to Simply the Best by Tina Turner, or some of the power ballad. But thankfully, we managed to leave that world behind us. And we actually started to do jobs for much smaller companies, startup businesses, and things that actually sort of inspired us.
So people more like yourselves, people who are more passionate about their own businesses, rather than speaking to brand managers from Orange Telecom, so which is much more interesting for us to do. And as Kat was just saying, we also have created our own brand. Because I think that there's everybody who does branding consultancy and design probably at some point starts to think, I'm telling you how to do this, but actually, should I be getting my hands dirty and trying it out for myself? Because then, I can kind of see whether I can really practice what I preach. Yeah. So Mini Moderns was an experiment in that.
Yeah, and so basically, we can kind of talk from being brand owners and also kind of being brand experts for the past 20 years. So we're just going to give an overview of kind of the tools that you can kind of use to actually help build a brand. So this is just a series of things that we do as Mini Moderns. We're predominantly a wallpaper company, and we do a series of homewares, paint, and then kitchenalia, and then we've just launched our bedding line as well, and we make everything in the UK.
So that's Mini Moderns. We're going to come back to Mini Moderns because the way we've structured it is to share some of our kind of branding best practice with you, show you some examples of things, and then we're going to come back to Mini Moderns to show you how we built that and how we use some of the tools that we're going to talk about to create and to manage and to communicate the brand that we own. So we thought we'd start by talking about what's at the heart of the brand. And, as I'm saying, branding, it can sound like a scary word because you think, I need a brand. Well, a lot of clients come to us and they say, I think I need a logo. And obviously we're always at great pains to say a logo isn't a brand. A logo is a manifestation of a brand, but it isn't in itself a brand. And I'm sure that we're reaching to converted, that everybody knows that a brand is more than a logo. But we sort of have lots of different ways of talking about what a brand is. A conversation is very basic form, a conversation. Yeah. And a brand, we like to think of a brand as a kind of manifestation of a set of values and beliefs. It's also a way of kind of holding up a mirror to your target customer or your reader and saying, do you see yourself in this? Is this interesting to you? Because if you see yourself in this brand, then you're probably going to connect with it. And ultimately, a brand is a way of connecting with whoever, whether it's a customer or a reader. That's what the brand is.
So why do I need a brand? There are a number of reasons why you might need a brand. And we've kind of summed it up in sort of 3 E's, which are emerging, evolving, and extending. So you could be an emerging brand, you could already exist and you want to move into different, and you need to develop, or you might actually want to move into a totally different category, and so then you're doing a brand extension. So, emerging brands.
Emerging brands.
One thing that's quite useful to do, this is called brand mapping, and I'm sure you probably know about this anyway, but what's a quite good thing to do is if you can plot out where you think that your USP might be, or
kind of working out where there's a space for something that isn't already covered. So yeah. We kind of did this on using some axes. These are axes that we thought were relevant. So essentially, I'm going to have to look here because I can't read that.
So basically the vertical is editorial versus instructional, and general versus specific. And basically, we've just plotted 3 blogs on here that kind of to show sort of where they would sit in that axis. So you've got somebody like Walnut Gray, who's much more editorial and very specialised in kind of his interest in sort of very cool, clean design, to Ariana's Daily, which is sort of recently relaunched blog, and that kind of covers all of her interests, including sort of food, fashion, and then obviously you can't come to Blogtacular without mentioning Will, and so his kind of plot is he has a lot of instruction on his blog, but it's also editorial as well. So he kind of fits in that in the sort of middle towards the general.
So essentially, what you can see from that chart is, for instance, there's a gap there in something that's kind of specialist and instructional. So, but obviously, if that's your area that you're interested in blogging about, then there could be a brand opportunity there. The next
the things are really getting scary.
The next thing is the brand pyramid, and the brand pyramid is something that is another tool that, again, you don't have to structure it like this, but this is just a way of starting to think about what you're about, what you're building your brand on, and the foundation that we call attributes and benefits. So attributes, that could be your experience. If you have had 4 children as a single mum and that's what you want to blog about, then you've got a lot of experience in that. That would go along the bottom.
Or you could have been a fashion editor or worked in different industries, but that is basically one of your core assets.
Exactly. So it's a way of kind of just working out what are you building the brand on, what are your core benefits. Values. We talk about values as sort of behavioural attributes. So really, how as a brand, and we can also think as a person, how do you want to behave? What kind of values are kind of core to the way that the brand is going to communicate? So things like integrity, things like passionate about design. Those kind of things are all your core values. And if we think about the next 2 parts of the pyramid as being more the kind of external facing things, so that they more the bottom 2 bits dictate the way you behave internally, and the top 2 bits dictate the way that you look and feel, the way you communicate. So personality. Put simply, we talk about the personality as how you describe the brand if it was a person. So it's fun, it's vivacious, or it's quite serious and analytical. Those things are all about your personality. And then finally, your brand essence is a succinct way of summing up what the brand's all about.
And sometimes some of the brands that we've actually worked with, their brand essence has actually gone on to be their strapline. So it's something that actually sums up exactly what you're trying to say about who you are or what your brand stands for. But they don't have to come in triangles. You can do what you want.
They can be onions.
They can be wheels.
And ours is a house.
And ours is a house, which we'll show you later.
So essentially, that's the first part. That's kind of what we would traditionally call in branding brand strategy. You've kind of like set out what you're all about, what is your brand essence. And then, of course, we have to start thinking about how you're going to communicate those values, that personality, that essence. And probably the first thing, if you haven't already decided, is a name. A lot of our clients, because, for instance, they may be clients who are setting up a kind of artisan food company, and they may not have established their name yet, their brand name. So we will kind of help them to decide what name to use.
Yeah. And the thing about naming as well, which I probably shouldn't say, is that once you have named yourself, if it's not your own name, you're kind of going to get sick of it after about 5 years. And that is fine, because by then you've got recognition and you don't have to worry about your name anymore. And then there's one little test which Mark always drums into people, is the telephone test.
It sort of starts off as the telephone test, which is, and this is something that you talk about when you're working in big corporations, and they might be thinking of changing the name or something. And it's kind of, how does it sound when a customer is, you know, on the end of the telephone? How's it, that first kind of hello, AstraZeneca, you know? But the way that it's more useful for people who are closer to their brands, like we all are, is if somebody says to you, if you haven't seen somebody for 5 years and you meet them in the street and say, what are you doing now? And you say, I'm running a blog called Bright Bazaar. If that trips off the tongue, if it feels like you're comfortable with that, then you've got a good, it's a good test.
And if it sums up exactly what you want to say about yourself as well. So,
but if it doesn't, if it feels like it doesn't kind of, if it feels like it jars and it's, you know, you kind of, you know that thing that we all hate using our name, we all hate standing up. Is this right, or am I? Everybody hates saying hello, I'm Mark Hampshire, because it sort of sounds like kind of weird.
Yeah, you would if everybody started saying that.
But so it's a good test to just kind of work out, does it feel like you're comfortable with it?
And obviously, Mark touched on before, but an important part of your brand is your logo and visual identity. So we're just going to quickly sort of go through a few kind of identities. A good thing about sort of a logo is there are sort of tricks that you can find within maybe some words that actually will help you sum up your what you're trying to say as a brand. So, for example, it's nice that.
I mean, quite often, you know, in terms of doing the graphic part of a job, we you know, sometimes we'll get a brand and a name that just absolutely, it's got horrible letters in it. They don't look good together. They're kind of, and we'll say to clients like, "You've got awful letters in your brand name." And they don't understand what we mean, but it just means they're just not sitting well together. But you know, a smart designer can usually kind of come up with something. It's nice that it's a nice treatment.
And then Confession of Design Geek, which is quite interesting because it works in the confession box, actually in the logo, which actually is a really good thing to be able to pull out and actually use as an icon when you're kind of doing avatars and things like that. Of course, Bright Bazaar. I mean, the interesting thing about that is that totally sums up what that blog is about and even includes a bow tie. And then this is a job that we did for a blog which is basically a nostalgia blog and quite focused on food, but also about the family. Walnut Grey, who we mentioned before, because Gerard is an interior designer as well, he kind of used these quite cool colours, but they sort of appear to be swatches that you might use when you're kind of specifying a sort of interior.
Habitat. I mean, nothing could more succinctly say, love your home. You know, so something like that is just a great piece of branding, which was an update actually of their original 1970s, or late 60s little house with the chairs. But you know, that very smartly kind of sums up. So when you can get, that's like a kind of like a bell ring, isn't it? When you've got your brand essence and then you sum it up visually. And something like Wedgwood, which, you know, it's a little bit kind of traditional and dour looking, but it has, you know, that lovely thing of putting that, is that an amphora?
I like it, if it is.
I think it is. Let's call it an amphora. In the middle of the W, which kind of, you know, creates a graphic mark and has, you know, a sort of clear, strong kind of icon.
Oh, we love this. I mean, kind of feathers and fur. You kind of look at it one way and it's a little doggy, and then you look at it and it's a parakeet sitting on a branch. And it just is such a lovely touch. Circus of Magazines. It's a big top. I wonder what Circus of Magazines is.
I don't know.
And then MONOCLE, something like MONOCLE, this kind of starts to introduce kind of an icon at play. The typography of the icon isn't the same as the word, but a clever touch, popping a little monocle on the M, which also we'll get onto later. They've been able to use that icon to move from the magazine onto product into a shop. And Colour and Paint, which has just launched, which is quite interesting because the C and the P form the ampersand, and it means that although they're kind of a brand new brand, eventually they'll be able to start pulling away from even using their name, and you'll be able to recognise their icon. And this is a job that we did for
A property
A property developer.
Architectural property
And
developer.
very modernist housing. And they were doing a development on a place that was an old pub, and the pub was called Black Horse. And in their portfolio, the fact that there was something called the Black Horse just didn't sit right. So we sort of went, well, what's the address? I went, well, it's 181. And then we kind of looked at it and actually realised that we could actually fit the numerals inside the typography, which was actually, when we did it, was foil block silver.
So it's a sort of example of how a visual trick can make something that feels quite unappealing. Actually, suddenly it has some appeal and starts to kind of resonate.
And this is another one of our jobs. Basically, like we said before, Jo Robbins was she is now. We made her skin architect. But basically, that was her brand essence, and she really liked it because she did quite expensive kind of face creams and sort of beauty products. We do a lot of work in the beauty industry. And then 103. And then the JR that we actually linked was kind of sort of a suggestion of sort of a DNA strand. So it kind of all came together. So it's on 3 different levels. And creating a brand, it might even be that you want to just exploit and where you live, or where you actually work, or where you love.
Where you love, do you mean the place that you love?
The place that you love, no, where you love.
Your favourite love making.
Oh my gosh!
What does that say?
What does colour say about your brand? We've just briefly put these in because what we want to sort of do is a very, very sort of quick overview, and basically just think about colour. We hate red, so we would never be a red brand, but it'd be worth kind of looking on sort of different blogs of colour philosophy blogs, just psychology blogs, just to kind of get a feel of like, am I doing something that, it might be your favourite colour, but it might send out the wrong signals about what you're actually trying to communicate. What does language say about your brand?
It says an awful lot, Keith. Thinking about language, if we just think back about the brand pyramid, where we put personality at that kind of 3rd tier, tone of voice is part of that personality section, because it's, as much as your colour and your identity, your visual identity, will give people a clue about what kind of brand you are and how, what audience you appeal to. The way that you speak, the way that you use language, and it's particularly useful, it's particularly important now, of course, because every brand is communicated over social media. The tone of voice is increasingly important.
And that can cover sort of everything from, we've just taken, 4 key things that we speak in different ways on different kind of social platforms. So we're much more straightforward on Facebook, for example. We're much more conversational on Twitter.
And obviously, you will find the tone of voice that's right for you, because it will be your tone of voice. But we were reading something recently that basically said your tone of voice, as much as it has to come from the heart, it also has to be appropriate to your customer. So, for instance, if you're blogging to busy mums, they're not going to read a 8-paragraph section about about the history of your how you set up and so on. So that kind of be concise when it's appropriate.
And also the other thing is that we get asked for quite a lot of interviews. And one thing I just would say in terms of social media, we do a lot of interviews for bloggers. We've always, I'm going to drop myself in by saying we never say no, aren't I? But make sure that even questions that you're asking people actually sum up what you're trying to say in your blog. We get a lot of kind of how did you set up and things like that, and then we get some really crazy ones like kind of what animal would you be? But yeah, really think about sort of if you are interviewing anybody for your blog, that the questions that you ask them are relevant to your readers, and that you know that your readers will be really interested in your angle on what you're asking that person.
And if you want to know what animal we are...
I can't remember. Oh, you're a giraffe.
I'm a giraffe, aren't I?
I'm a pit bull, I think.
Evolving. So back to the 3 E's. Why do you need a brand? You need a brand for various reasons. So we've just covered emerging. So emerging is setting up, establishing yourself in the marketplace. I'm using words like marketplace, whereas but just kind of like
we're all out there.
Evolving. Brands are very useful tools when you're evolving, because essentially you're kind of moving from one situation to another, and you have to take a brand with you, and you can use the brand as a means of communicating to people that you're in a transition, for instance. We are in transition.
Yes. Or we were,
Yes.
probably still are. We started out as a company called Absolute Zero Degrees. We were a branding agency, and we entered a competition and won it and produced wallpaper. And then we won some awards. And then it became really confusing for our clients to turn up on our website, and actually quite corporate clients looking for sort of brand expertise, and then finding that we were sort of hanging wallpaper on the pages of Grand Designs. So it became sort of apparent to us that we really had to kind of try and separate our businesses. But we didn't want to lose the Absolute Zero logo at that point, because we had credibility in producing wallpaper for the award-winning wallpaper. So we kind of had to live with dual branding for a little bit. And then we finally had the confidence, as we started to grow Mini Moderns, that we could actually start to lose it.
So this is now a sort of snapshot of where we are now. We've now sort of retired Absolute Zero Degrees to be essentially a holding company, and we're now trading on the equity that we've grown over the last 7 years in Mini Moderns, because essentially now, if people come to us for branding, they're more likely to know that we are the people behind Mini Moderns. And we've created a new brand for our branding and design company, which is Mark and Keith.
And we don't hide when we meet our clients, and we kind of work with them very, very closely. So we kind of thought that anyway, the name that we had felt really cold, but also that it didn't sum up that they were going to see us. So we kind of also then played with language. So at Mini Moderns, we always say we're about pattern and colour, and so we decided that with Mark and Keith, using the language of brand again, we're about branding and marketing, branding and design.
That's not quite,
isn't it? I don't know. It's really new. We've only just rebranded it. This is a job that we did for a PR company called PR Girl, who wasn't a girl in the end. It was set up by David's wife, and basically she had children and he took over the business. So it became sort of important that they kind of moved forward, but it was the name was actually starting to be a hindrance. So sometimes you do have to step back and just say, actually, not that I got it wrong, but things have changed, my situation's changed. But what's interesting about this job is that they still loved their sort of graphic flower that they had. So when they changed their name to Scene, we actually tried to work in as much as possible the same kind of look that they'd had for their PR Girl logo. And then this was their back of the business card, so you can see that we still include the flower in there, and we just kind of started to play with the shapes. So you get quite a dynamic look to their branding. And this is a recently updated Ariana's Daily. Ariana sort of used to do an interior blog called Ariana's Interiors, and then she has become sort of like quite interested in in fashion and much more to do with lifestyle since she's started Heart Home magazine. So, but as you can see, even though it's changed focus, there's still a kind of synergy between the way that it looks, so you still know that it's her.
Back to Jo Robbins, one of the reasons that we branded her as Jo Robbins Skin Architect was when she originally talk about kind of knowing that you've got something wrong. She came to us and said, I've got a very expensive face cream range, and I've called it Cream London. And we said it just doesn't sound good at all. It's not working for you.
And we thought the connotations just felt horrible.
And so we didn't go there. But what she also said, and kind of back to the brand pyramid, Oh God, that brand pyramid is so useful.
See, it's useful. It looks boring, but it's useful.
Essentially, she's one of the things that kind of attributes and benefits foundation point was that she said, my products are good for men, good for women. I want to create a brand which is unisex, and that's going to be part of my philosophy, that skin is skin, and we're just about strengthening skin. So this idea of strengthening skin gave us the idea of skin architect. And then we kind of said to her, how do you feel about using your name? Because the great thing about the name Joe Robbins is, A, you think that there's an expert behind the brand, and B, Joe is an androgynous name. So we kind of had a gift there, which if you want a brand that's going to be for both sexes, then you're not going to alienate anybody by using your name. So it was a win-win situation. This is a brand, it's an independent television company.
BAFTA award-winning television company.
Indeed, and they were called Oxford Scientific Films. They make Meerkat Manor and lots of factual television programmes that you'll see on Secret Life of Dogs. Anyway, the big problem there was that they are no longer based in Oxford.
They're not really scientific.
And they're television, not film. So when they turned up at meetings in central London and people said, how was the train down? They got really bored of saying, we haven't come from Oxford, we've come from Soho. So essentially, but for all sorts of kind of logistical reasons, they couldn't lose Oxford Scientific Films. It held too many copyrights and things like that. But we decided that the best way for them to communicate was as OSF. And the brand essence that we came up with for them was factual TV with diversity. So this notion of diversity started us on a kind of visual trail to find as many O's, S's and F's as we could in the environment. Sorry?
It was fun, wasn't it?
It was fun. We had to go to New York.
We had to go to New York to do it. There's just a lack of O, S and F's in the UK.
They just aren't enough, are
No,
they?
they just aren't.
Got to get on that.
But this is quite an interesting thing because one thing that's sort of in terms of branding, which is actually against all the rules, so we're telling you about rules and now we're going to get you to break them, is the concept of dynamic branding. And obviously, probably the first dynamic brand was MTV. So they kind of use their logo in lots and lots of different ways.
So that M becomes a canvas for as many different kind of moods and ideas as
I'm just agreeing with you. And you're like, I know.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Google, obviously we all know, it plays around with its logo and creates as many different kind of animated things. Always topical. Google Doodles. Tate is an interesting dynamic brand because it's always recognisable, but actually it has this kind of constant shifting, changing, sort of animated feel. And then they can kind of make it more appropriate to the location of the various different Tates.
And the City of Melbourne has just rebranded, and of course it's got an M at its heart, but it's also kind of got lots and lots of different patterns sort of going on, so it keeps it fresh.
And in terms of evolving brands, because we're talking about evolving, I think that the dynamic brand is a really useful brand, a useful kind of system that kind of like signifies that kind of evolution that you kind of AOL, America Online. It was a kind of quite a dull brand, and through the use of this dynamic branding system, they've managed to inject a lot of personality into it.
And then sort of Jan at Poppy Talk, not recently rebranded, but she kind of experimented with using lots and lots of different logos. They all have a similar feel. You can tell that they come from the same point of view and the same look, but she kind of used different branding on her blog, kind of, and sort of rotated them, which I think worked really well. And then extending, the third E.
So brand extensions, obviously we're all familiar with brand extensions when for instance? Okay, when a fashion brand becomes an interiors brand, or the Kylie, for instance.
Hey!
That's an extension.
That was almost seamless.
But again, brands are useful in creating extensions, moving from one category to another category. Perhaps you're going from well, for instance, from a sort of an entity, a body of people, to a physical space. We'll show you in a second. This is a building that's been built in Nottingham, which we branded Space 4. Now, it's actually, the initiative behind it is a dance company called Dance 4. And we rebranded Dance 4 so that we could also kind of extend it across a physical space as well.
Because also Space 4 isn't purely for dance, it's actually a creative initiative but for small businesses and things in Nottingham. And Heart Home, we've mentioned already. Heart Home was a blog, and then it turned into a quarterly magazine, and now it's monthly. So basically at the beginning of their blog, they kind of kept in mind that they possibly were going to do a magazine. But also it is a very subtle example of dynamic branding, because they change the heart shape every issue. And how do I manage my brand?
Okay, so we've had 3 E's about how a brand can kind of help you to establish yourself in the marketplace, evolve from one place to another, and maybe extend from one thing to another. Managing your brand, we've summed up in 3 C's. So essentially, we talk about managing brands with clarity, with consistency, and with creativity. And I think this is a part that is probably really quite useful for everybody. We have to kind of like do this as a checklist for our own brand regularly. Clarity. If we start with clarity, the reason that we think about clarity.
There's lots of writing on there.
Here's something that's not clear at all.
No, but basically, this is a strategist called Emily Thompson, who used to contribute to Design Sponge. And she set up her own business called Creative Entrepreneurs. And although this is a checkpoint for a checklist for actually how to begin with a blog, it's actually it's all about branding. So basically, the touch points are: is my core purpose represented? Am I
that's
addressing
kind of like the brand essence?
Yeah. Am I addressing my dream customer? And is everything consistent? And those are, if any of the points, those are 3 really, really good things to actually remember.
And again, we probably all know this, but the reason for this notion of clarity, clarity is all about kind of like working out what you're about and expressing it very simply. Bright Bazaars, Will's done an amazing kind of checklist, cheat sheet kind of thing, to talk about kind of ensuring that you're always clear about what your core purpose is and what your blog is about. And
also, it's really interesting in the fact that even though the advice is invaluable for people on there, it's still done in a manner that's actually totally on brand, and so totally sums up his blog, what he is, and has a really, really strong look.
Consistency. Although we've just talked to you about dynamic brands, and obviously those are brands which kind of like break out of consistency and kind of restrictive branding systems. Consistency is still incredibly important, because the reason that we go back to brands time and time again is because we trust them, and you build trust through recognition, through kind of constant kind of repeating the same kind of look and feel, and creating something that everybody can recognise, because it builds that trust. This is just an example of this is the way that we present work when we first do concepts for people, and this was for a large garden, what do you call those? Horticultural company, who wanted to go into the birdseed category. And so we created, to start with the job, we always kind of present a number of concepts.
Yeah, so we normally do 3 routes, which we come up with sort of suggested names, and we kind of polarise everything, so to really get an idea from the client as to where they actually want to go with their brand. So this is just a sort of way that we kind of sum up to them. We do about 5 or 6 pages where we kind of just go, well, if this was your name, this would be the colours, this is how you would look online, and that's what your packaging would look like, this is how you would extend your brand, and then kind of this is what advertising may look like, or in-store display, and this is how you might look at a trade show. Now we kind of do those. It's kind of worth keeping those in mind, because it might be worth sort of thinking about, hang on, if I am creating a brand, why should I put restrictions on it? Let me think expansively about it, and what would I look like if I was a shelf of bird food?
So kind of like, but just kind of creating that consistency, and knowing that you've got, we call it proof of principle, but essentially just kind of making sure that what you've created here is going to work when you're further down the line here. And finally, creativity, and we do talk about creativity being the lifeblood of an engaging and successful brand, because every brand needs to kind of keep its audience engaged, keep itself fresh, and always be kind of fresh and relevant to the target market. And
this is what Nestle Nook turned into. It turned into peckish, and basically what was sort of what they wanted to do on all of their packaging was actually tell their consumer how to look after birds, and just give a bit of an insight into if you had no experience before. So it had a kind of family feel to it. So basically on the pack, we were able to sort of take elements of the logo and actually put it onto the pack and explain sort of different things about birds migrating, which is with this suitcase, and they're like snails, and they fall out of nests when they're very young, and things about their heartbeat.
We learn a lot about birds.
We do so much.
This is Dance for the dance company in Nottingham who are expanding into space for.
They're an arts organisation, but their canvas is dance, so they're not like tap dancing studios or things like that. They're kind of their art as
dancers art.
So we wanted the logo to be quite dynamic and quite light.
And then, in terms of being creative, what we created from the identity was a number of visual shapes that then could kind of, be used to add dynamism to imagery and so on. And
this is quite a scary thing. This is what we have to do as branding agents. When we actually deliver a brand, we then have to deliver brand guidelines. I'm not saying that any of you should even think about this, but you've got brand guidelines, have you? So these are quite sort of, type sizes, etc., and they're quite intense. That was quite a big document. But one good thing that you could do is maybe keep mood boards of where you are as a brand, so that you constantly can refer to them about, am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the same things? Have I got consistency? Am I creative? Or even just a kind of private page on Pinterest for your eyes only.
So, we'll just spend the last. Have we got 10 more minutes just to talk about this?
You've got 15.
We've got 15 minutes to talk about mini models. That was well timed, wasn't it?
Yes.
So essentially, and take questions. Okay. All in that 15 minutes. Okay, so we'll have 10 minutes on this, or maybe 7.
Just keep going. There's the 7 gone. Anyway, so we said that we launched our own brand, Mini Moderns, and going back to our brand essence, we plotted.
Okay, so as we said, we decided ours wasn't a triangle, ours is a house, and my eyesight's not good enough to read those. But essentially, in that left-hand attributes box, we were able to put things about, for instance, our graphics and branding experience. Obviously, that was kind of one of the core things that forced us to do it. But also, Keith's fashion and production background, my background as a designer maker, our mutual love of pattern and colour, and our mid-century modernist design influences and knowledge. And then thinking about our values, the way that we were going to behave as a brand. We always knew that original design was absolutely core to what we wanted to do. And we had a sense that we wanted to sort of, have integrity. Though that's kind of so the way that we behave the way that we form relationships with our suppliers and the people who we do business with, we like to always kind of, engender as much trust as possible, and form long relationships. Collaboration is really key, so that's another aspect of that, because we collaborate with our producers and manufacturers. We also collaborate with other designers and other makers so that we can kind of do creative collaborations. Mindful of the environment, we kind of do, we do our best, we do our bit to kind of, for instance, we have UK manufacture, and UK manufacture is as much about kind of wanting to support British industry as it is also about wanting to, kind of not clock up the air miles on the products that we're creating. So there's a kind of relationship between the environment and the UK manufacture. And then, as we said, the kind of like everything at that roof level is the external side of our brand. So our personality, you can judge this. That old thing about you can't tell somebody you're funny, you just have to make them laugh. Hopefully, no, not that. Hopefully, we are friendly. We have fun. Whether other people have fun or not, we have fun. So fun is kind of like definitely, part of our kind of work ethos. We like to be intelligent if we can. We like to sort of,
We like to be quick as
well. And we're British. We're very British. And our brand essence, we call it a little bit of modernism. Do you want to talk about that?
Yep. Basically, this can go quite quickly. We obviously just having a sort of flashpoint of sort of like saying these are our typefaces. We produce lots of different patterns. Each of our patterns, if it turns into a different product other than wallpaper, actually has its own logo, which actually sums up what the feel of and inspiration is of that pattern. And here's our colour palette. Basically, we've got quite a varied colour palette, but our main brand colour is grey because all of our products are always colourful. So we didn't want anything that would compete with the colours of all of our products.
Weren't you going to tell a secret at that point?
What secret?
But we got it wrong to start with.
Oh, we never get anything wrong. We did get it wrong. We were a brown brand to start off with, and we liked brown. And it's coming back. But we decided it wasn't. We decided it really wasn't a good look. And then this is going back to sort of both language and also sort of iconography. That's right, isn't it? So all of our products that we make in the UK, we carry the standard made in the UK by nice people. And this is a new icon that we've just done for our bedding. That's all right. Carry on.
Okay.
And then also Mark sort of touched on, we used some speech bubbles as well, and kind of, we thought the old way of writing shop was quite cool, so we did that. As Mark touched on the sort of the eco thing, we live and work in a complex of 15 businesses who all give us their cardboard boxes. So this is just the wording that goes on our swing ticket, which is at Mini Muddins we reuse and recycle all packaging, and then we make the statement that it's inside, that it's what's inside that counts.
And in a way, I suppose I think that's quite a succinct way of saying that kind of you use the language that's appropriate for your brand, but also sometimes you have to make a positive out of a negative. When our customer receives wallpaper that's packaged securely, but in what is clearly a box which has been something else. Hopefully when they read that on the label, they think that that's a positive contribution. By contrast, we ordered some wallpaper from Farrow and Ball, and it had tissue.
Not for us.
Not for, no, it was for my mum. It had tissue paper on it, and it had a beautiful branded box. It was gorgeous. It was exactly appropriate for...
Charlotte, Mark and I cooed over the top of it, didn't we? As we then started taping them.
But, it's working out what's appropriate for your brand. It wouldn't be appropriate for Mini Muddins to send out expensive and kind of, sort of incredibly, overly produced packaging, because it kind of just doesn't suit our ethos.
And then one thing that we have got, which we sort of talk about now, is exploiting your assets. What we have is a wallpaper library, basically, of, we now have 47 prints. So basically, we've always got those on tap that we can actually utilise in kind of things like swing tickets, packaging, promotional material. And
so because if a brand's going to say we're about pattern and colour, you know, you would expect that all the communication material and the packaging is going to be about pattern and colour.
Yeah.
So,
and then this is quite interesting because obviously when we launched our paint, we sort of had to step back and make sure that our paint actually summed up who we were as a brand, but also so that it looked trustworthy. So it's the kind of most serious looking piece of packaging that we've got, and it carries its kind of eco-credentials on the front because it is recycled. It's made from recycled paint. But although we kind of sort of although we explain that to the person looking at the tin on the front, we couldn't resist putting hand mixed by Barry on it, because it is. And that just kind of also just adds a bit of mini modernism into something that is actually
quite a serious
product.
Yeah. And it's just a lesson as well in kind of, even though you're creating a brand that's all about, you know, reflecting your values, sometimes you have to play the visual game of the category that you're kind of working in. So it's kind of back to those axes again, isn't it? Kind of like working out where the space is and working out what your take on it is.
And then we also produce a newspaper, which we produce every collection, which sort of gives an insight into our patterns and our brand. And we chose a newspaper because we're really not glossy brochure people. And that's how we consistency again. So that's how we photograph our products. So although these are some ads from Simple Things magazine, and but all of our photography kind of has the same look. And then again, that's how we express our brand in a trade show setting.
So are we on to?
Thank you.
That's it.
Don't ask Natalie.
We'd be very happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Hello. I wanted to ask about brand essence. The Joe Robbins one, obviously just 2 words, very succinct, and it tells someone who's never heard of her what she does, what that product is. Yours just reminds me a little bit of modernism.
Yes.
Which, if you didn't know Mini Modernism, it tells you it's about modernism, but not necessarily what the product is. So how much do you have to put into a brand essence? How many words can it run to 2 sentences, or are you then past an essence into a description?
Yes, you sort of are. I mean, I think the annoying bit of advice I'm going to give is that the thing about the brand essence is that there aren't any rules, but except that the succinct bit is the only thing that is the rule. You need to sum it up, because it's actually the process of summing it up that, you know, helps you to. It's kind of like the haiku principle, you know. The smaller and smaller you can get it, the more you're kind of working out your very kind of your core purpose. And you know, I'm not saying that we still kind of look at a little bit of modernism and think, is it right? And then we think, well, it kind of is, because those are the principles that kind of guide everything that we do, and the little bit of kind of sort of expresses everything, you know, in the way that we are. Another useful thing to think about when you're doing brand essence is if you sort of think of it as a dichotomy, you think it needs to say what I do and how I do it. So if you can possibly get within the phrase an idea of what you do and how you do it, then that, you know, so for instance, you know, skin architect is a very, very succinct essence, but you know it's about skincare, and the architect suggests that it's about strengthening and building, and so you've kind of almost got there what you do and how you do it. So, you know, that's a useful tool. Does that kind of explain?
I think this is probably a recurring question, but do you work with bloggers, and by you I mean mini moderns, and if so, in what way do you like to work with bloggers?
Well, we're old enough to be at the dawn of blogging. We were on the we were sort of featured on the very first Design Sponge sort of post, and we kind of work in a number of ways really. We're quite happy to sort of do interviews. We're quite happy to sort of share sort of what we're up to and things like that. So yeah, we're quite blogger friendly.
We actually, I think one of our strengths, if it doesn't sound too much like I'm blowing our own trumpet, but one was that early on we were very, we took blogging really seriously, and one of the reasons was that with another hat on, we wrote 6 books on graphic design for kind of students and designers.
And we had to source all of our photography was sourced from Flickr, and we've been on that other end. We've been told that people don't know who we are. Why should they trust us? Why should we possibly let them use their photos? And I think sort of in the very early days as well, I mean, there were kind of a lot of brands that were being approached by bloggers, and you know, sort of, I can think of a couple, which I'm not going to say, but basically said the same thing. Like, why should I give any information to you? It's like, you're not a magazine. And I think that sort of like PRs in bigger companies actually weren't quick enough to actually understand that it's the future.
Hi guys, really good seminar, thank you. My question is, when your company has so many strings to its bow, so I could probably say I've got about 7 or 8 things in my company, and I don't want to pop it all on a business card. Have you got any advice? I mean, I've basically got 2 companies rolled into one, but offer lots of other things. It's gift wrapping and ribbons. But how much information on a business card should you have?
That's interesting.
I mean, the thing with business cards, it's a bit like a snapshot of who you are, and I think as succinct as possible. You can always, I'm probably going to say the wrong thing, but you can. I think a business card is if you think about it, it is a calling card. It's about what it looks like. We try to limit as much information on our business cards as possible. We kind of have a logo and we say hello and this is my phone number.
Yeah, it kind of, I suppose, you know, you sort of have to work out what your core strategy is, because if you want people to know that you've got lots of strings to your bow, then it's great to have all your businesses listed on the back of your card. If you want people to if you want to sort of silo the people that you're talking to, then it's probably useful to have lots of different cards to give to the right person. I don't know, is that what you're doing at the minute, kind of giving? Right. Yes.
Right.
Right.
I'll show you your business card later.
Yeah. The other option is
it's kind of difficult to talk about it in abstract.
Yeah.
So
but, you know, the other option is to kind of rebrand, and because if you know, we would probably then look at the options of what would happen if you were to rebrand as as one simple coherent brand, which happened to have all these kind of things under that umbrella.
Hello, that's really interesting, thank you. Hi, I'm a full-time professional blogger and I'm in the process of rebranding my blog, and I'm a little bit nervous, so I wondered if you've got any advice for how to sort of launch it to my readers. So currently my blog's quite, I wouldn't say girly, but it's quite nice and pastel-y, and there's a pretty little illustration, and I'm going for much more of a clean, white, kind of fashion illustration-led look. And I'm kind of holding my sponsor's hand, I'm feeding them regular emails with what's happening behind the scenes, but it'll be kind of a big change when it's launched out there on the 2nd of June for my readers, so I was just wondering if you've got any advice, how to kind of let them know why I've done it, or
it's sort
so they don't all run off scared.
Yeah, I mean, because you can do sort of, you can do transition branding, you can kind of start to almost say, flag up, we're changing, and I think the idea of doing that is usually, you sort of say to people, we're changing and this is why, and look out for our, clean new look. It's going to be, like kind of destination for X, Y, Z, blah blah blah.
I mean, when we did the PR girl job and changed it into scene, the PR girl logo went blue for a little bit. Then the PR girl disappeared and it's kept with the flower. and then it moved into using all of the patterns, and then it then revealed that it was called scene. So you can kind of do sort of treating like advertising, you can kind of do sort of teaser campaigns that kind of build an awareness of what you're suddenly going to be, but don't give it all away.
I've got back on my phone, I've got part of my new branding, and I've been doing little subtle Instagrams and stuff, but without giving too much away.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds like a good. And with the PR thing, it kind of like it went dark for a while, but it just had something very exciting to, something big's happening, and
That's what I do. I was planning on taking my blog offline from Friday through to Sunday. It's some kind of teaser. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I was planning on taking my blog offline from Friday, Saturday, Sunday with a holding page with a kind of something big's happening.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Then,
I think that sort of works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And especially for what you're saying is really exciting. I mean, it's coming right the way back. It sounds like preaching, but come right the way back. It's all about language again. It's all about what does your brand, what does your blog, how does it say something's coming soon? It's all about expressing your brand essence through language and exciting your readers, and they'll know that it's your tone of voice.
Let's give it up for Mini Moderns!